Hello fellow GCC assessment professionals. This video will be a discussion about how I personally present assessment to my students. My name is Pam Nelson. I work in the Physical Sciences Department here at GCC, and specifically I teach geology. I've been doing assessment for a long time, and I've had a really good success rate with getting students interested in and completing assessment once they really understand the why of what they're doing. So I'm here to help you see some of the positives of involving students in your assessments. We all know that our goal in assessment is to increase student understanding and student learning and to provide evidence of that. But that general definition doesn't necessarily help the students understand why they're being asked to do what they're doing. Once the students understand why you're doing an assessment, it's going to increase their buy-in and it's going to allow them to be more confident in taking a substantial attempt at whatever assessment you are using. Sometimes those assessments are being used outside of a graded assignment. Many people use them incorporated into a graded assignment, others do not. For instance, in my department, we sometimes use shared assessments that might not have a basis in the direct course material. For instance, we've used some that test arithmetic and/or graphing in physics classes, but are based on geology content, and sometimes vice versa. That makes it even more important to explain to the students why you're doing the assessment and what it's intending to show us, since it's not necessarily directly related to something they're going to be tested on. There are also many departments and courses that are using the institutional learning outcomes, or the ILOs, for their assessment, and that allows or requires the assessment to be posted in Canvas and published. If that assessment isn't being counted towards the grade, the students might question why they have a graded assignment that isn't counting in points towards their grade. If you understand and allow them to understand, what an ILO is, then they will have a better understanding of why they're getting that 1, 2, or 3, or 4 rating that is on that particular assignment. They are going to understand better what you want from them if you describe that the assessments are being used in order to help us better and improve classes and everything across the college with respect to the overall success of the students. When we talk about that purpose of assessment, we want to make the point that the students are who's going to eventually benefit from watching and learning about these assessments. They are very clear that they have been assessed for a very long time. They just don't know it by name. I have often described the concept of how they have been assessed in K-12 with respect to all the standardized testing and the unfortunate correlation of that standardized testing to the perceived success of the K-12 instructors and how that's utilized throughout the K-12 system. One of the first times I explained this to my students was actually when I had a K-12 student visiting my class, and she couldn't have nodded her head more times as I described how widely that form of assessment is used in the K-12. We're given the gift that we are not evaluated as instructors for our assessment, but it helps us to improve what's happening with our students. So that gives the students a perspective that allows them to see that it's about them and that we want them to be able to be successful and for us to be able to have a success rate that we can measure. It also is good to tell the students that these forms of assessment aren't directly or are not always directly tied to their grade, because grades don't often tell us the whole story about a student. They certainly can't tell us the whole story about a whole campus just by looking at grades across the entire distribution of all of the various disciplines. So we want to see more effectively what can be changed given a particular series of evaluations or assessments based on a particular theme, like say critical thinking or something. And then lastly, make sure you tell them that you will tell them how they did. When it gets to that point, you want to follow up with the students on the results of their group. You, of course, never want to single out a specific student. We all know the rules for that. And if possible, you want to share their results and compare them with other groups or campuses or other classes. Everyone likes competition. I know that my students always want to see grade distribution for a given test. Same thing goes for assessment. You want to see how you're doing relative to the other groups, and especially if they're posted in Canvas for the individual student, they can look at their individual score, but just giving them the overall numbers sometimes helps. You want to inform the students of what you are going to do with that assessment. If it's going to be used in a future course, so be it. You can tell them that they are helping out their peers. That is something that I have told them multiple times, and they really like the fact that they are contributing to people who are taking the course in the future. And you want to allow them to have the opportunity to essentially assess the assessment. You want to ask them if they have any feedback on how the assessment was given, or the question that was asked and whether it didn't make sense and that's why they got it wrong. And to be fair, sometimes the students will have absolutely no feedback or not want to say anything, but many cases and in many examples in my classes, I have had people give me some good feedback that's been helpful for the future. And a little bonus here is if you're getting interaction with your students by discussing the assessment, it might actually get you a little bit more motivated to complete and analyze all that assessment that you have to do for those silly forms that we have to use all the time. And lastly, just remember that our students are part of the assessment team. We may think of them as the people we are assessing, but they are doing the work during these assessments we give them, and they are the ones we're trying to help in the long run. So just give them the credit they are due and have them become a part of your assessment team.